We begin the second parak in Mesechta Bava Metzia, parak Metzias, which continues the theme of the first parak of Shnai Meichzin, which spoke about two people disagreeing with a talis, which all the Mishnayos were talking about regarding the halachas of if someone finds something, what the halacha is. And this parak continues on that theme, specifically regarding the halachas of a siman, which regarding a lost object, that is a chiv of Shabbos Aveda, and regarding the qualifications of that obligation, and specifically regarding the halacha of yiur, which has halachic status like hefker, like it's ownerless, and therefore you wouldn't have to return it. And also regarding the halacha when there is no siman, that then we presume that a person would be miyayish. Sheias corresponds because the Chazka turn to Daf Yomi, turn to today's Daf. So we discuss in today's Daf are that we discuss elu mitzia shaloi, velu chayav lahachers. What are the things that when you find it, you could keep it? What are the things when you find it, you have to announce it? Those that you could keep is because a yush miyayish, pablo hefker, the person is going to give up hope, it's going to be hefker. And those that you have to announce because lo miyayish. And our mission discusses, elu mitzia shaloi goes through many different examples of finding scattered fruit and scattered money, or regarding bundles in Rosh Hashanah, that there's no siman because everyone tramples on it. And the Mishnah goes through many different cases, the harei l'shalai, because they're all identical and they have no siman. We'll see in the Gemara is going to qualify basically this halacha of peiros mifuzaren differently than now it sounds like in the Mishnah, and also it's going to open up the well-known machlokes between Abai and Rava of yiur shleimidas, when a person has yiur but he doesn't know about it yet, meaning he would give up when he would find out about it. What is the halacha? And the Gemara starts that conversation, tries to bring many different rayas from the halacha of our Mishnah regarding that machlokes. So we begin the current Daf Chaf Aleph. We begin the new parak elu mitzia shaloi. Says the Mishnah, there are certain found objects that if you find it, you can keep it. And then these are the ones that you have to announce, as the Mishnah explains. First, we're going to say elu mitzia shaloi. These are those that it's the one who finds it. And there's 10 cases the Mishnah discusses. Case number 1, matzah peiros mifuzaren. If someone finds produce that is scattered, so as Rashi tells us, the owner has given up hope from getting his peiros, as the Gemara is going to explain why that would be, and therefore it's hefker, and therefore it's ownerless, and you could go ahead and take it. That's case number 1. Case number 2 is mo'is mufuzavas, scattered coins. So since there's no recognizable siman on money, the owner gives up hope. And again, it's hefker, and as Rashi explains, that's the tam kulam. The reason of all these cases of the Mishnah that you could keep it, how can you keep it, someone else's item, is because essentially it's like the person was mafkeret, made it ownerless, it's not his anymore, and there's no gezela, no chiv of Shabbos Aveda, because he is miyayish, he gives up hope of getting it. Case number 3 is krichos, which are small sheaves, small bundles, birshus harabim, in the public domain. Now, as Taisa points out in detail, but this is the only case that we mentioned that it's in the street. So as Rashi tells us, why is it significant that it's in the street? Because everyone steps and tramples on it. So even if there was a siman that was tied on to that bundle, it's already been destroyed by people stepping on it. So now it's essentially like not having a siman, and again, therefore the owner is going to be miyayish, and therefore it is hefker, and therefore you could keep it. Case number 4 is viguli develo. These are cakes. They had these round cakes of pressed figs, or kikare shel nachtam, or these loaves that were made by the baker. So these round cakes of figs and these loaves of the bakers, they're all the same. Everyone makes it like that, and therefore there's no siman. But if it was a loaf of bread made by a regular homemaker, then, as we'll see in the following Mishnah, then that there's a siman. This person braids like this, the person makes it that size. But when it's generic, when it's something it's made by the baker, that there's no siman. Case number 6, machreza shel dagim, strings of fish. Again, this is how they sell it in the stores. V'chaticha shel basar, or pieces of meat. Piece of meat looks like any piece of meat. Case number 8, v'gizei tzemer, or shearings of wool, halakuchen mimedinasan, specifically that's taken from the countryside, that is unprocessed wool, as they're shorn from the animal, like all other shearings of wool from the countryside, which there's no siman, but that's coming to exclude as the seifa as we call it, which is the next Mishnah of Chafei, tells us if it comes from Beis HaUmen, if it comes from the production, where then already everyone produces it in a different way, or then it possibly would have a siman. But again, all these items don't have a siman. Case number 9, Banitze Pishtan, or bundles of flax, which these are spun, they're manupets, they're already combed, these bundles of flax. But again, this is how everyone has him. And case number 10, uz ulashainais, literally means tongues, shalar gaman of purple wool, but it's wool that's combed and drawn like a tongue, and it was dyed purple the way it always was. That's how these are generic items that are sold. So if someone finds any one of these 10 things, even if possibly started out as siman, but it ends up not having like kriches b'shas ram, or just start off without a siman, like all these things that generic items. Harei Shalai, Dibra Meir says if you find these things, you're allowed to keep it because the owner was meyayish, because there's no siman, and therefore has halacha like hefker. Now Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, he says that kol sheyesh b'y shinoi, anything that has something unusual about it, chayv lahachas. Oh, then already you have to call it out. So he's going to go on one of these cases that we mentioned. So although we said, let's see, find a round cake of figs, which that's a very generic item, there's no siman. But says Rabbi Yehuda, if there's something unusual about it, then you would have to call it out ketzar. So he explains. Let's say someone finds one of these round cakes of pressed figs, and inside of it he finds a earthenware pottery. That's unusual. Or kikar, which we said it's like the baker's loaf. There's nothing special about it. But inside is money. Oh, that's unusual. If you find such an item, then you have to call it out and return it to its owner. One more halacha is Rabbi Shimon Elazar. I mean, he says kol kli anpuria. The Gemara is going to explain what the word anpuria is. Ein pairaya, any such vessel, ein chayav lahachas. That you don't have to call it out because again, there's nothing that could be defined by its unique features, and therefore one would not have to call it out. Now, the Gemara qualifies the first case that we spoke about. It sounds like a very simple case. Matzah peis mufazar. We said if you find scattered fruits, harei l'shalai. So, like it's something that there's no siman. The guy dropped it when he's walking somewhere. So okay. So it's like all these other cases that you can keep it. But the problem is, says the Gemara, b'kama. How much? You said if it's scattered. How much is considered scattered? Let's get technical over here. So Rabbi Yitzchak says it's a kav, which is around the volume of either 1.5 quarts to 2.65, around that amount of volume. Ba'arba amas. An amma is somewhere between 18 and 24 inches times 4. Or let's say take 2 feet. Let's say would be a total of 8 feet. So around 2 quarts, let's say, within 8 feet. So that's what it's scattered in that area. So that's what Rabbi Yitzchak qualifies for the halacha peres mevazar. The problem is, says the Gemara, heichadami. So this that he's saying that's considered scattered. Well, what's the case? So the Gemara explains. Meaning to say what Rabbi Yitzchak is trying to say is that if let's say it scattered only in 3 amas, that wouldn't be considered as scattered. So the Gemara is going to discuss this. So if you find it derech nefila that looks like it fell, then you can know that it wasn't deliberately placed there, but it fell. So afilat tuva, then even if it's more than a kav, more than that quantity, nami should also be that since there's no siman, and you could tell that it fell from the person and it's lost from him, so he's going to be miyash, he's going to give up hope because he doesn't know where it is. So it should even be harei l'shalai, even more than the kav. And v'derech nuach, and if you could tell that it was placed down, and even less than a kav, nami loy should also not be harei l'shalai because the guy's coming back to take it. So how do you understand this peres mevazar of Rabbi Yitzchak that specifically a kav ba'arba amas? Why would that be the halacha? It should depend on if it was placed down or if it wasn't. So Amr Reb Ukva Bachama, he says a whole different interpretation in this halacha. That you're right, it shouldn't be dependent on that amount of quantity. It's only going to be if b'machnashta de beidari askinan. We're talking about b'machnashta means the gathering of the daris, like from the lashon of zayra of winnowing. It's by the threshing house. When they gather the silo, and here is where the owners thresh it, and they took the primary, and they left this amount of produce. So the interpretation has nothing to do with that it fell from a person, and if there's a simon or not. Nothing to do with that. The halacha matzah peres mevazarin is not that, it fell and like it's scattered. You come to the threshing house, the guy took the bulk of his stuff. Now you find kav barba amas. If you find the kav in 4 amas, the nafish tirchayu. It's very difficult to gather a kav. It's not so much of a quantity. To come and gather that in the area of daled amas, it's a lot of effort. It's a very different svara than the rest of the Mishnah. A person's not going to go through the effort. He's not going to come back and take that little amount of fruits in such a large area. Rather, afkurim afkalahu.
Did you seem to say the prayers, the ratio, are talking about if they why would they call winnowing things fruits? Strange.
No, Paris is a generic term for all types of produce. Yeah, Paris is for everything. So I would just translate it as fruits, but English is flimsy. It doesn't really translate Hebrew words well. So rather, afkurim afkalahu, he's going to make it hefker. If it's less than that, meaning if it was scattered in the area less than daled amas, if you have a kav in 3 amas, okay, that's not so hard. He's going to make the effort. He's going to come back and he's going to take it v'loy mafkalhu, and he's not going to make it hefker. And that's why we said that specifically halacha of a kav in daled amas. That's where we say the halacha of the harei l'shaloi. Not because you dropped it and because of a sin, because that would depend. If it looks like it dropped, then who cares and how much? Why is Rabbi Yitzchak qualifying? And Taisa explains that the question was really Rabbi Yitzchak's own words also, as he proves it. He was setting us up, but that's what that's what we know about Peres Mubazaran, that it's regarding Machnash the Beidari Askinan. And then in that halacha, okay, so then that's how he's qualifying. What is a tircha for a person to gather in that amount of quantity in that area would be an exertion, but less than that would not be so difficult. He would come back and take it. Now, the Gemara has 4 similar type of questions that really depend on one principle being asked regarding this halacha of Peres Mevazaran, the way Rabbi Yitzchak qualifies it. Meaning, Rabbi Yomi has the following question. Question number 1. What happens if you have chatzi kav, a half of the measurement that we mentioned, b'shtei amas, in 2 amas, mahu, which is essentially the same ratio. You told me a kav, which is a certain amount, in 4 amas, it's too difficult. It's too much tircha. He's not going to come back for that. What happens if a chatzi kav in 2 amas? What would the halacha be? Now, the truth is, Taisa says, the bottom Taisa says, well, that's interesting. A kav in daled amas is also half a kav in 2 amas, because half of that is half of that. So what's the question? It's already told it's too difficult. So on that says Taisa 2 answers. He says, not true. If it's only a half a kav in 2 amas, you'll gather it because it's not so much of an effort 2 amas. But a kav in 4 amas, there is a tircha because people are all or nothing. And to go the whole thing is too much, and they're not going to do anything at all. They're not going to come back. And Taisa is bothered by the question, saying, okay, do half. If you're entertained the idea that a half a kav in 2 amas, it would not be such a tircha. So then kav and daled amas also, why are you saying it's all hefki? He'll come back take half because that's not the tircha. There's no, people are all or nothing. Okay, then I have to do the whole thing. I'm not doing anything, right? And but maybe only half a guy, not so much. The guy would do it in 2 amas. That's one answer Taisa says. Or another person Taisa says, which is interesting, there's no, a kav and daled amas is squared. That would be a half a kav in 4 amas. Here we're asking a half a kav in 2 amas squared. Meaning if you think about the measurements, it's not exactly half of the previous equation. It would be a half a kav in 2 amas width on 4 amas length. That would be half.
Rectangular.
Right. So I'm saying it's not the same thing. Here we're talking about half a kav in 2 amas squared. That's not half of the same equation. It's actually less. So therefore, that's the Gemara's question. But upon them, question number one, the Gemara explains it like this. Kaba ba'amis tamamai. What's the reason why a kav for amis that we're saying you could keep it mishum denofesh techayir? It's a big effort. Who's going to come back to the silo and go and gather that quantity in such a large area? But chatzika b'shtei amis, a half a kav two amis, given the nofesh techayir. It's not such an exertion. It's only 2 amis of area that you have to gather. Maybe it won't be mafkrit. That's one side of the question. I didn't know. You could say the other way around. Mishum delay chashivi. Generally, a kav of peiros is not so significant to make the effort to go gather in the area of Dalet Amas. But v'chatzi kav b'shtei amas, so a half a kav and 2 amas, so keeping the loicha shibi, that's for sure not significant, because even less than it's half the quantity, then mafkul, he will be mafkul. In other words, the variables are, on the one hand about tircha, so for tircha it's less, so maybe he won't be mafkul. On the other hand, there's the element of chashivas, of how significant it is. So half a cup is for sure not significant. Maybe for sure he's not going to come back. It would be mafkir. That's question number one. Now the equation goes the other way. Multiplication, not division. Kavayim b'shmoin amazma. What's halacha? 2 kav in double the amount. So the same ratio, just double. Before we divided by half, now we're multiplying by its same amount. 2 kav in 8 amas. What's halacha? So Gemara explains. On the one hand, kav ba'amas tamamai. What's the reason why kav and dalet amas? Why it's hefker from the nafesh techai? It's too much of a tircha. So b'kolshkin kavayim b'shmoin amas, for sure the guy's all or nothing. 2 kav and 8 amas. Keep nafesh techai tvei. That's even more of an effort. He's got to go a larger area. Mafkul, he's going to make it hefker. Like on the other side of the equation is no. Usually that kav is not such a significant. A kav is not so much. But v'kavayim, but 2 kav. B'shmoin amas and 8 amas, given the chashiv, it's already a significant amount of peiros. Like mafkul, the guy's not going to be mafkir. Maybe he will come back for that. Same question, just a different way of.
It's interesting the Gemara doesn't bring in yush, because if it's more appreciable amount of pairs, you would think that a person's going to recognize he lost so much, he's going to come back for it, even though it's mefuzah.
So that's what I'm saying. So the idea here of the mefuzah is just the tircha of it. It's a question we're asking is.
What about yush?
The yish is only if he doesn't want to come back for it. The question is, would he come back for it? The guy's giving up. He's like, yeah, I don't need this anymore. So that's the question: is he being meyayish from it or not? Question number 3, another related question: kav shumshimin, a kav of sesame seeds, ba'arba amas in 4 amas. Mao, what's the halacha? Now, sesame seeds, as we know, are very thin, very difficult to gather them more than wheat, which was the peiros we were speaking about up until now. But they're more expensive. They have more value. So I asked the question like this: on the one hand, what's the reason why kav and dalet amas, why it's considered ariel shaloi from the chashivi? It's not so significant, that amount of wheat, let's say, of just a kav. But sesame seeds, given the chashivi, they're significant. You'll say loy mafkulu, a kav of sesame seeds, you won't make it hefker. Or then you can say the other way around, from the nafesh techai. Again, that's the other variable. The reason why you're not going to come back is because it's too much of an effort. For sure, sesame seed even more of an effort. So then mafkalu. So then he is going to make it hefker. Same question. Question number 4 is now the reverse again. Instead of going one way, we go the other way. Kav tamiri ba'arba amas. A kav of dates in 4 amas, or kav rimayni ba'arba amas, or a kav, which is a measurement of pomegranates in 4 amas. What's the halacha? So the reason why this is the other direction again, because they're very large. It's not hard to gather them like wheat kernels, which are smaller. So again, the Gemara asks, what's the reason why a kav in 4 amas you could keep it if you find in mishum dalei chashivi? Grain is not so significant. Kav tamri b'arba amas, now a kav of dates in dalet amas, and kav rimayni b'arba amas nami, a kav of pomegranates in 4 amas, also given dalei chashivi, they're also not so significant. Not expensive, more expensive than wheat. Mafkalu, you're going to make it hefker. Maybe the reason why we consider generally hefker is because it's too much of an effort to come back for. But a kav of dates or a kav of pomegranates and 4 amas, it's not so hard to gather them together because they're large. You would say maybe loy mafkali, you would not make it hefker. It says the Gemara, what's the halacha? Says Gemara, take it, let it stand. It's not clear regarding this basic equation, this basic question, which was 4 different applications. What the halacha would be? Which one is the primary variable? And we don't have the answer to that question. Now the Gemara, because we're describing that the primary halacha Rashi was telling us is the halacha of years that you're going to give up hope. Now the Gemara opens up the famous machlekes regarding this topic of yish. The idma we learned as we continue to Beis, yiyush shaloi midas. If a person gives up hope without being aware, what does that mean? So Rashi explains, it's something that we would presume would generally a person would give up hope. That when he would find out that it fell from him, he would give up hope. But what happened was, the guy who found it, when he found it, the owner didn't yet know that it fell from him. So the guy just couldn't give up yet because he didn't know about it. But had he known about it, he would have been miyach. It's called yiyush shalei midas. Without knowing that a person has the yiyush, what's the halacha? So Abai Amar says lo have a yiyush. It's not considered as yiyush because the guy didn't give up hope. He didn't know about it. But Rav Amar have a yiyush. Rabbi says it is yiyush, and later on the Gemara is going to explain what their machlekes is. But first the Gemara qualifies their machlekes. The davish by siman, something that has a siman. It has an identifying feature to it. So kulam pligi, no one's going to disagree to have a yish. It's not going to be yish, meaning of course not when it has a siman. So the Gemara explains. Meaning avagav the shamini the miyayish l'saif, even though at the end, which is really how every yish shalemidas really works at the end on some level. But so when it has a siman, even though you hear him at the end that he's giving up hope after the guy already found it. Now, how do you know? The general rule of yish, as the Gemara tells us later on Daf Gimel, is that if the guy says, vaydle l'chasar kiss, but okay, what a loss of money. So he's revealing his intention that he obviously gave up hope of it because he's sighing that he lost the money. Even so, lo have a yish is not going to be considered as yish. What does that mean? What I mean, it is yish. He's miyayish at the end, yeah. But the chiyas liyadei, when it came to the hand of the one who found it, be'isura hodas liyadei, it came to him prohibitedly because this is an item that not usually that the person would give up hope from it. And therefore, since he took it at that time, he has a chiv to return it, even if the guy subsequently gives up hope, because that's already, you had your chiv hashava before he gave up hope. So therefore, everyone agrees that the l'chiyada, the nafal, that generally, since this is an item that when he would find out that it fell from him, in general, loy miyayish, you're not going to give up hope. Because Meimar he'll tell himself, Simoni is living a bit. I have an identifying feature regarding it. I'll give an identifying feature and I'll take it. And therefore, even if he subsequently was miyayish, everyone agrees, even Rava, that it's not going to be considered as a valid yish. On the other hand, the other way around, Bezute shel yam, in the tide of the sea, which there are certain places at the edge of the sea where it's normal for the tide to go backwards 10 parsa or 15 parsa a few times during the daytime, and it swallows whatever is there. The word zuta is like it gets big, the tide. Or bishlulisa shel nahar, when the river overflows and goes beyond its banks, and that's what shlulisa is from shailul, like it robs and it takes whatever it finds over there. So avagav this beis siman. So even if the item had an identifying feature, even so Rachman Sharyeh, the Torah permits the one who finds it, even if it comes to his possession before the owner gives up hope, he's allowed to keep it according to everyone. Could be like the Gemara is going to tell us later on, the sugya, from where do we know regarding a lost object that gets swallowed up by the river, that you're allowed to keep it. So what's the machlekes then? Keep pliki, the machlekes Abai and Rav is b'davar she'ein beis siman, something that does not have an identifying feature. Abaya Amar lo Abba Yish, Abaya says, it's not Yish. He doesn't know that it fell from me. You're right, if he would know, since there's no siman, he would be miyash, but he doesn't know. And therefore, it's not going to be considered as Yish. Rav Amar Hava Yish. Rav says, no, it's going to be Yish. Why? Because since when he would find out that it fell from him, Miyash, he would give up hope. He's going to tell himself, I don't have an identifying feature regarding this. So so therefore, it's right now that he's going to give up hope because it fell. And when he knows, he's not going to have any more consciousness regarding this thing. And therefore, says Rava, that and that seems to be the machlekes Abai and Rava, regarding something that's oimid for something. Do we consider that quality as if it's right now that you don't have a chiyuv of hashava or not? Rava says that we consider it already as a something that of hefker, and therefore you could keep it, and Abai holds not. Now the Gemara brings in siman and amanik, a pamgash mamkagdi ti kaksaz which is the different proofs regarding this machlekes, which is quite a few of proofs that the Gemara attempts to bring regarding this machlekes of Abai and Rav regarding Giyush Shalei Midas. And a bunch of them are from our Mishnah. Toshima. The Gemara tries to bring a raya for Rava from our Mishnah. The Yish Shaloi Midas, without knowing about it, is Yish, which all the cases of our Mishnah are that a person seems to be that doesn't know about it. It fell from him. And so you say the guy who finds it could keep it, which would seem to be like Rava. So Tashma number one is that's the pay of Pamgash is payris, mifuzarin. We said that if you find scattered fruits, the guy could keep it. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? The guy doesn't know that the fruits fell from him. You're right, there's no simon, but obviously we see like Rava, the Yish Lamidas is Yish. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? We said on Amid Aleph, Hach over here, we're not talking about that fruits fell and the guy doesn't realize and there's some watermelon there's some apples there on the street that fell out of his bag and he could keep it. That's the scattered fruits. We're talking about that it's scattered in the silo. We said that that's a deliberate lost object with his awareness. It didn't fall from him. He left it over there and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to go through the tircha to come back. And if he left it there as hefker, and that's why he could keep it. So it has nothing to do. It's not yish shaloi medas. It's aved midas. Yeah, no, that seems like the Bach amends the words to the Bach amends it, but it's really the same thing. A Dalet and a Zayin are interchangeable. The Gemara says Toshima. The Gemara says let's try to bring another right to Rava again from our Mishnah. Case number 2 of our Mishnah was Mo'is Mefuzars. We said if you find scattered money, Harei L'Shalai. So a guy was walking, he had a hole in his pocket, or his purse was upside down, and whenever you find some money, you could keep it. There's no simon. So Amai, why? The guy doesn't know that it fell out of him. The guy's walking with a big smile, doesn't realize that he lost his $300 of a few miles back. He has no clue, and you found it as you're walking by, and you could keep it. Why can you keep it? It's Shalai Midas. Says no, Hasam Nami there also is Kedreb Yitzchak that we're going to quote later on. That's the Amar. He says, Adam Asila Mashmesh Bekisa B'chol Shah B'Shah. A person is always touching his purse, his wallet, at all times to make sure his money's there. So Hanami Yerosa, in this case, Adam Asila Mashmesh Bekisa B'chol Shah B'Shah. A person always touching his money at all times, and therefore, before the guy found it, the owner already know that it fell, and he's like, he already gave up hope because he's like, I'm not finding my money, and therefore, it's not Yishla Midas, it was Midas. So Gemara tries to bring another raya for Rava, again from our Mishnah, Toshma, from cases number 4 and 5. We said if someone finds iguli devela, round cakes of pressed figs, rikikarish or loaves of a baker, you could keep it. Why? Well, the guy who went shopping for his wife, and he has these bags and these cheap bags, and they like broke through that big heavy bottle of soda that was just making holes in the bag, and he dropped the loaf, and he left it there in the. He doesn't find out till Friday night by the student. His wife says, "Where's the chalas? What? I brought it back. No, there was no chalas." Right? So the guy who found it, it should be yish lemidas. L'chayr you see like Rava. Says Gemara, no, Hasam Nami there also it's not shalemidas because agav the yikiri, since it's very heavy these items, the loaves or the cake of round figs, the person already knows beforehand. Meaning if it's a very small item, so the guy could drop it and not notice. These are heavy items, and the person's going to realize that hey, something feels a little lighter over here in this bag. He looks down, and he sees there's a big hole in it, so he's going to find out very fast, and therefore whoever's going to find it, it's not going to be Yish Shaloi Midas, it's going to be Yish Midas. Moshe says, okay, Tashma, I'll try to bring another right to Rava from our Mishnah, case number 10. We said, they had these these wool, processed wool, like in the shape of a tongue, made of the purple wool. We said because again, this is generic. Everyone has these items. There's nothing identifying about it. But it says, but if you find it, why can you give? The guy doesn't know that it fell out of him. It's not heavy. It's not something that a person's always touching for. So it seemingly would be Yishul Midas. You see, like Rava says, those are very valuable. The person is also going to feel around to make sure he still has it. Regarding money, same thing would be, even though it's something that is not money per se, but it's a valuable item, you're also going to be touching around, and therefore it's Yush Midas. Okay, now that we're done with the Mishnah, the Gemara tries to bring rayas from other places. Tashema. The Gemara says, let's bring a raya to Rava from a Brisa. The Brisa says, if someone finds money in a shul, or in the Beis Medrash, or in the Beis Medrash, Anywhere where the public is found, you find money, you can keep it. Why? Because the owner gave up hope from getting it back. There's no simon that he has on those dollar bills, on those coins. Says the guy doesn't know that his pocket, that whatever was on the table that it fell. So why is there El Shalai? Seemingly like you see like Rava. So this was the source that we had quoted before. Rabbi Yitzchak says no adam asla mashmash b'kisa b'chol. A person's always feeling around by his pocket for his money, and therefore that's why the guy already knows, and therefore it's not going to be yish shalai midas, it's going to be yish midas. Says okay, Tashma tried to bring another raya for Rava from the Mishnah Masechta Peah. The Mishnah says that me'imasai kol adam mutar maleket. From when is every person permitted to take the gleanings, which are the 1 or 2 stalks that fall, because that's really only for the poor, for the matnas aniyim. When is every person permitted, not only the poor, permitted to take the leket? Says the Mishnah, Mishayelchu b'hanamushes. When the rummages, when the nemushes, which you can explain in a second who they are, once they already went through, then it's already hafker. No poor person thinks he's going to get anything anymore. They're miyayish. It's hafker. Now any person can walk through, and if you get lucky that day and you find something, you could keep it. Now, regarding that Mishnah, we said my nemushes. What are nemushes? So there's 2 different interpretations of what nemushes are. He says sabi da azli atigra. These are the old men that walk on a cane. So these old poor people, they walk on their stick very slowly, and they see every single stalk very slowly, and that's where the word nemushes comes from, which is more like the pasuk of lo yemishun, which is that they're touching everything, and there's nothing past these old people. They got every stalk, and therefore everyone already gave up hope. It says, "Oh, the elter Yidden dot givein." Okay, forget it. You're not going to find anything there. So now, if some little kids are running through and they find something, they could keep it. Shlak Shami says a different shot. It's Lakute bas Lakute. It's the gatherers after the gatherers. So here the word nemushes would mean of removing, like lo yomish, that which is they take and they remove everything from in front of them. And again, a group went through. Okay, so you're not going to find anything. It's already too late. It's you woke up too late for the vegetable picking. Everything was taken already before the crew. Okay, but those are 2 different interpretations. Okay, but it says the Gemara, I have the following question. But why is this the halacha? If you hold like Abaya, that yish midas, that you would give up hope had you known about it. But since you don't know about it, it's not yish. So although the poor people in this town, they're already giving up hope because for them it's yish midas. They saw the nemushes go, either the El Eden or it was already the second crew already went by and they're like, oh, forget it, it's too late. And they give up hope. But there are poor people in another town over. They didn't give up hope. They don't know what's going on in town. How are other people permitted when this is for all the poor people, all the Jewish people, all the poor people, and they don't know yet to give up hope? Obviously, because since if they would know, they would be miyayish. It's years from the moment that the nemushes went by, and therefore any person that takes after that is taking it permittedly. But that's a right to Rava, not like Abaya. Some they said no, it's not true. Even the ikaniyim hacha, since there are poor people over here, to the contrary, the poor people in the other town, they give up hope even before anything even gets started. Because they say, anim dahasa malaktile. The poor people over there, they're going to be taking it. So forget about it. It's not even worthy to go cross the bridge, to go take the Vugan and go to the other town because they're going to get it beforehand. So not like they're not Miyayish because they don't know they're Miyayish even beforehand. It's only that even this town already give up once the Nemushes go, and therefore it's not a raya to Rabbah. So this is Tashma tried to bring a raya from Mishnah Masechtas Meisros. Kitziyos, which is from the word of kitzitza, like they have these figs that they would cut them with a knife, and the juice of the figs would pour out, and then they spread it out in the fields to dry up. That's how there's a juice there in the figs. They want it to dry up. So if you would see these dried figs bederech on the road, or v'afil b'sad, and it's v'afil b'sad sadei katziyas, even if it's on the side of a field that where they have all these figs spread out drying, so you obviously know that it came, that although you're finding it on the road, but you obviously know that it probably came from this field, or v'chein, another case, te'ena, a fig tree, anoita l'derech, that's hanging over a road. And you find figs beneath that tree on the road. So in these two cases, even so, mutaris misham gezel. There's no problem about stealing them. So even though that when it fell, the owner doesn't know about it, it doesn't know that it came out of his field, that the wind blew it, or that the tree fell over the road. But since when he would know, he would be miyayish, because it's on the road. Now it's already yiyush, and the reason why we're bringing this is because it sounds like a ride to Rava. The guy doesn't know yet, but if he would know it's on the road, it's already done deal, he'd be miyayish. So therefore, there's no problem about gezel. And ubeturis min meiser. You don't have to take meiser from those figs that you found on the road, like that loch of hefker, because as the Mishnah Masechet Meiser teaches us, hefker is part of a meiser, so it's already hefker. He has miyayish. So therefore, you don't have to take meiser from it. Now that's regarding figs and these katsias, which are also these figs that are drying. But bezeisim b'bacharuvim, regarding olives and buxter and carob, aser, that's forbidden. Well, that seems to be like a baya, because the guy doesn't know about it yet, and therefore it can be forbidden to take it. So the Gemara says, now the Gemara has to explain this Mishnah according to both Abaya and Rava, because it says the Gemara like this: we understand that the first half of the Mishnah, according to Abaya, is not difficult. In other words, he could answer, and he could tell you that actually the owner already knew about this problem beforehand, and therefore he's meyayish, as the Gemara is going to explain, and it's not considered yish shaloi midas. Well, how's it not yish shaloi midas? He didn't know that the fig tree is going to drop the figs onto the ground, and now people are walking and is on the street, that to be meyayish, it's yish shaloi midas. No, it's not. Because agav de chashivi, since these ketziyas, there's two cases. There's ketziyas, which are the dried figs, and there's also the fig tree. So first the Gemara explains, since the ketziyas are the dried figs are chashav, are significant, mimashmesh behu. He's always feeling around for them to see what's going on with them. And when it rolls onto the street, he already knows before the guy who's walking on the street finds it, and therefore it's yish midas, not yish shaloi midas. That's that case. So to einanami, the fig tree case of when the fig trees hang over the road, made the yedid nasra. He knows that figs are loose and that they're going to become dislodged, and therefore he's already miyayish beforehand. He knows about that. It's not like he doesn't know and he only finds out like a week later. He's like, "What's going on over here?" I was like, "Wait a second," and the people already taking all along, and it's not usually that. He knows about it. But and therefore the Mishnah is good like him, because Zeisim Charuvim would be different, because they don't become so dislodged, and therefore it's Yishalei Midas, and therefore you would not be able to take it. But I'll say for the Rava Kasha, but according to Rava, the Sefer of the Mishnah is difficult, because like Tony, what does the Mishnah say? It says Bezeisim B'Charuvim Aser. If you're walking on the road and you find olives and carobs, that's forbidden. So as Rashi explains, the Gemara assumes because they don't usually fall out, and therefore you can't say that he knew to be miyayish. Now, even though when he would know he'd be miyayish, but it sounds like that it's not yish from right now, which is like abaya. So that's difficult on Rava. According to Rava, even though it doesn't usually fall out, but if he knew he was on the road, he would be miyayish. So why is Eisam Charuv Maser? Some of Bavo says no. Shani Zayis, olives are different. Its appearance makes it recognizable whose it is. You could tell from which grove the olive is. Oh, okay. So the Avagav the Nostran Zaisi. So the Gemara is switching, and Rashi was addressing that before. Even though you're right, olives also easily fall down. And made the idea, but since it's known, it's recognizable that duchta de inishu, you could tell the place of a person, which person it's from. So therefore, the owner, when he knows that it fell, he's not going to be miyayish, because he says everybody knows that it's my olives and it's not hefker, and therefore they're not going to take it. which traces on the bottom of the Masechta Te'ena, all the way on the bottom, he says that Pirish, he says, olives that fall look like the olives that are still on the tree. So therefore, even when the owner knows that they fell, he's not going to be Aish. He knows that whoever's going to fund is not going to take it. But by figs, that the Gemara is going to explain right now, so the Gemara asks, if that's the case, that you could tell what's called chazus mechiach, you could tell which grove it came from, afil reshanami. And even the case of the figs, why did you say that it's also aser? Because the guy's not going to be Aish, because you're going to realize it came from his fig field. So Rav Papa says, no, te'ena, figs are different. Why? Im nefilasa nemesas. When it falls, it becomes disgusting. So therefore, since he knows it's going to fall, so already in the beginning, beforehand, he's already miyayish because of how disgusting it's going to become. Because when it falls, it's not significant to him anymore, and he's mafker. Now, Tais actually brings the bottom lines of Taisus. He says, some have the girsa, im nefilasa nemeses, not with aleph, without an aleph. And what it means to say is that it changes, and therefore it's not similar to that which is on the tree anymore. Its nemesis is it dissolves, melts, it has a different form now, which is the Yisod Taisus says of chazus mechichalav, that you could tell where it's from. With a fig, it doesn't have that. Or he says even if the gears are nemesis, but because it becomes all dirty, again it doesn't look like Taisus Yisod doesn't look like what's on the tree, and people could tell, hey, this is from there. But if not, maybe a guy walking dropped this. How do I know? So that's the difference between the case of the figs and the case of the olives. Al Kabanim, it's not a riot. It's not difficult, not on Rava, not on Abaya. The way they both resolve how we understand the case of this Mishnah. The Gemara says, okay, Tashma tried to bring another raya from the following brisa to Rava that Yish Lemedas is Yish. Because what does the brisa say? Haganav, a thief, Shenotl Mizeh Benosl Lezeh. A thief steals from one person, he gives it to someone else. Or V'chin Gazlan, a robber, Shenotl Mizeh Benosl Lezeh. He takes from one guy, holds him up at gunpoint, and then he meets his friend Moshe down the road. He says, hey Moshe, I got you a new watch. And he gives it to this guy. Or another case, as we continue on, the Jordan River, the river just flooded someone's backyard, who has a house there on the river, and it brought it downstream to someone else's yard. Which Rashi says the same thing as other rivers. It just happens to be this Tana lived on the Jordan River, but says the Brisa, the halacha is masha natal, whatever the ganev, the gazlan, the river took. Masha nasan, whatever it gave, meaning. Odul Hashem, you got yourself a new watch that the Gazlan, he likes you, Moshe here, and he gives you here this new watch, you could keep it. So the Gemara says, okay, Bishlam Gazlan, and I understand the case of a robber and the Jordan River. The guy sees the river flooding him, his whole patio set is being taken into the river, and the Gazlan comes up with a gun, so he sees him, she gives up hope. El Ganev, but the case of a thief, he comes in the middle of the night, and you never know any of the wiser that he took, or the guy took off your watch when he's talking to you because he has no sleight of hand, and you don't realize about it. So Mika Chazal, did you see him give up hope? You don't even know that he stole from you. And yet we said that the guy who gets it could keep it, but that's Yish Lemedas. So you see, like Rava, that it's Yish. So that says the Gemara, no Tirgum Rav Papa translated that the Ganav that we're talking about is Ballista Mezuin, an armed bandit, which he forcibly takes it from the person. So the guy knows in the beginning, and he gives up hope. So the Gemara says, Gazlan. So wait a second. So that's already the case of Gazlan. You already said Gazlan. Says the Gemara, Gazlan. There's two types of robbers, which the Gemara says this many times, and therefore it's again al kapanim. It is something that the guy knows about, and therefore it's yish. That's midas, and therefore it's not difficult on Abai. We'll continue on the next daf with this machlekes Abai and Rabbi trying to bring rayas. This machlekes. Thank you anytime for hosting us.